My wife once told me that physical closeness once a month was more than enough while she sat on the couch scrolling through her phone as if I were a ghost. But when I started showing up at home only once every month, everything flipped. She had no clue what was coming. My name is Dalton Reeves. I'm 44, and until half a year ago I thought I had everything under control. I've been married to Brooke for 18 years and we had 2 children. Asher, 17, and Haley, 13. We lived in a lovely colonial in Westfield, New Jersey, with a value around $800,000. I run a thriving consulting firm alongside my business partner, Shane Morrison. On paper it all looked spotless. The trouble with perfect pictures is they hide the rot behind the frame. It began tiny, the slow poison you don't notice at first. Brooke started clocking more late hours, saying the marketing agency she'd returned to after years at home with the kids was demanding extra time. Fine. She deserved a career that fulfilled her. I picked up the slack around the house, helping Haley with homework, driving Asher to basketball practice, cooking dinners when Brooke was gone. But distance crept in. Not only physical distance, though that was there, but emotional distance too. Conversations turned into logistics. Did you pay the electric bill? Does Asher need new cleats? The furnace guy comes Tuesday. We stopped talking about dreams, about us, about anything deeper than the errands of domestic life. Our intimacy evaporated like a drying riverbed. What had been effortless and warm became scheduled, dutiful, and scarce. When I reached for her at night she would tense up. "I'm tired, Dalton." "Not tonight. Can we just sleep?" became the refrain, always an excuse, always another reason to push me away. I began to second-guess myself. Was I demanding too much? Too needy? Maybe she really was overwhelmed, adjusting back to corporate life. I made excuses for her because that's what you do when you love someone and can't face the truth. The kids started noticing. Asher, sharp and observant like his old man, made pointed comments. "Mom seems mad all the time," he said one evening while we shot hoops. "She barely talks to you anymore, Dad." Out of the mouths of kids. Haley, my gentle 13-year-old, grew quieter at dinner, and her grades slipped. Her guidance counselor said Haley seemed distracted, anxious about things at home, and that landed in my chest like a punch. Our problems were bleeding into our daughter's life, and I hadn't fully seen how bad things were. The conversation that shattered my marriage happened on a Tuesday night in October. Nothing special about the date, nothing dramatic in the lead-up, just an ordinary evening that morphed into something catastrophic. I got home around 7 with Chinese takeout. Brooke was at the kitchen counter with her laptop, fingers flying across the keys. She hardly looked up when I walked in. "I brought dinner," I said, setting the bags down. She glanced at me for a second. "Thanks. I already ate earlier," she said. "I grabbed something at work." I unpacked the food anyway, hoping she'd join me. She didn't. I ate alone while she stayed buried in whatever was on her screen. The silence between us stretched into a canyon. After dinner I tried to bridge it. I walked over and rested my hand on her shoulder. "How about a movie tonight? Just us. The kids are upstairs." She shrugged off my touch. "I have work to finish. It's 8:30. Dalton. Can't it wait until tomorrow?" Her sigh had the impatient edge of someone convinced I was being unreasonable. I felt a tightening in my chest, but pressed on. "When's the last time we actually spent an evening together?" "Really together?" "We're together now," she said. "No, we're not. You're on your computer and I'm talking to myself." She finally looked at me properly, and in her eyes I saw something foreign. Annoyance. Real, blunt annoyance, like I was a pest that wouldn't leave her alone. "What do you want from me, Dalton?" she asked, and the question blindsided me. What did I want? I wanted my wife back, the woman who laughed at my bad jokes, who'd curl up beside me on the couch, who reached for my hand without thinking. "I want us," I said plainly. "I want to feel like we're married, not just people who split a mortgage." She snapped her laptop shut. "Fine. Let's talk. What's really bothering you?" I told her it was the distance, that we'd stopped connecting, stopped touching, that nothing mattered beyond the household's mechanics. She stood, arms folded. "This is about sex, isn't it?" she said. "It's about connection, Brooke. Intimacy." I asked. She studied me for a long beat and then said words that replayed in my head for months. "Honestly, I think once a month is plenty. More than plenty." The words hit like a physical blow. "Once a month," she said as casually as if she were discussing the mail. I repeated them to make sure I'd heard right. "Look, we're not 25 anymore. We have kids, responsibilities, stress. I don't think physical intimacy needs to be a constant thing you push for." I didn't sleep that night. Her casual cruelty. Dismissing 18 years of marriage with offhand indifference. kept me staring at the ceiling until dawn. She went to bed afterward as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just told her husband his need for closeness was an inconvenience. I stayed downstairs with a whiskey trying to sort my thoughts. The next morning I watched her get ready with new eyes. Methodical, automatic, coffee, makeup, suit, a perfunctory kiss to the kids. "Have a good day," I said as she left with her purse. She nodded without warmth. "You too. Don't forget Haley has soccer practice at 4. No affection, just logistics. That's when something inside me shifted. Not anger so much as a cold, sharp clarity about what I had been tolerating and what I was willing to accept. I called Shane and told him I needed a long weekend for personal reasons. He didn't pry. Friday afternoon I drove 2 hours north to a cabin I'd rented. A simple place to breathe and remember who I was before begging for scraps of affection. The silence up there was different. Peaceful, not hostile. I cooked for myself, read the books I'd meant to read, and hiked. For the first time in months I felt like me again. I didn't call Brooke, didn't text. I let her wonder for once. Sunday evening I came home. Brooke looked at me with mild irritation. "Where have you been?" she asked. "Away," I said. "Away? Where?" "I tried calling yesterday. I needed room to think." She waited for more and I gave her none. Let curiosity sit with her for once. Asher glanced up from homework. "Dad, where did you go?" he asked. "Just a little trip," I told him. Sometimes a man needs to clear his head. I caught a flicker in Asher's face. Maybe understanding. Brooke's jaw tightened. "Next time, tell me before you disappear for 3 days." I met her steady. "I'll keep that in mind, but I won't." That weekend showed me I could survive without her attention, approval, or presence. And in fact, I thrived. My behavior changed in small, purposeful ways. I stopped the midday texts that used to pop up. "How's your morning? Want me to pick anything up?" I simply stopped sending them. At first, she didn't notice. By the third day, I saw her check her phone more often. That small crease of concern forming when no message appeared. "You've been quiet," she said one Thursday over dinner. "Have I?" I asked. "Yeah. Usually you're more talkative." Asher watched us, sharp and alert. Haley kept eating, but I could tell she was listening. "Just focused on work," I said. It wasn't a complete lie. Shane and I were talking expansion, but the deeper truth was simpler. I was tired of being the only one trying. Friday I packed again. "Going somewhere?" Brooke asked. "Cabin. Need to finalize business plans." "How long?" "Through Sunday." She opened her mouth as if to say something, then closed it, speechless for the first time in months. As I pulled away, I saw her at the front window watching my car disappear. She looked smaller, less sure. The second weekend away was even better. I hiked 10 miles Saturday, cooked a perfect steak, read by the fire. No one asking for explanations or favors. When I returned Sunday night, Brooke had made an actual dinner. Not takeout, not reheated leftovers. Set the table with candles and even used the good china. "Welcome home," she said with a smile that felt slightly forced. I thanked her, complimented the seasoning, then kept my distance. She chattered nervously about work and neighborhood gossip to fill the silence while I listened politely but remained emotionally detached, and I could tell it unnerved her. "You seem different," she said mid-meal. "Different how?" I asked. "Quieter, more controlled." I cut another piece of meat and said, "I'm adjusting to our new arrangement." "What arrangement?" "The one where I respect your boundary of once a month. You said that was enough." Her face flushed. "Dalton, I think you misunderstood me." "Did I?" "You seemed pretty clear." She reached to take my hand and I let her, neither pulling away nor responding. Her touch felt calculated. "I want to work on us," she said. "I miss you." "Do you? Or do you miss someone who manages the house while you focus on other things?" I asked calmly. "That's not fair." She asked when I'd last asked her how she was. Really asked. Neither of us had a satisfying answer. After dinner, she sat close on the couch with her hand on my thigh and a body language that was deliberate. "I've been thinking about what you said," she whispered. "Maybe we can go upstairs and reconnect." I stood slowly and eased her hand away. "I appreciate the effort, Brooke, but I'll sleep in the guest room tonight." Her shock bordered on comic. What? she stammered. Intimacy isn't something you schedule when it suits you, or a reward you hand out when you need something. The next morning brought a reveal I hadn't expected. I was making coffee when Asher shuffled in from his sleepover. "Mom's crying," he said matter-of-factly. "She called Aunt Rachel this morning about how you're different." Asher grabbed cereal, his casual honesty cutting deep. "Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced?" he asked bluntly. Hearing it from my son hit harder than anticipated, not because I hadn't considered it, but because coming from him made it real. "I don't know, buddy. We're working through some things." Asher poured milk into his bowl and after a beat said, "Considering it, I'm glad. She's been treating you like garbage for months, maybe years. Haley and I have noticed." I set my mug down. "Asher, she's your mother. And you're my father," he replied. "I see her roll her eyes when you try to talk to her. It's like she thinks you're bothering her just by existing. Kids speak truth." I tried to be fair, she works hard, but Asher wasn't buying it. "Dad, come on. Jake's mom works 2 jobs and still kisses his dad when he comes home. Mrs. Peterson runs that whole charity thing and holds hands with Mr. Peterson when they walk their dog." Later Haley came back from her aunt's with her own questions. "Daddy, why are you staying away so much?" I knelt down to meet her at eye level and chose my words carefully. "Sometimes adults need space to figure things out. Sweetheart, are you worried? Are you mad at Mommy?" I paused, measuring the truth. "I'm not mad, but Mommy and I need to work through some problems." Haley nodded solemnly. She's been crying a lot since I started staying away, sobbing when she thinks no one's listening, and that sank in with me. Not guilt exactly, but a cold recognition that what I was doing was having the effect I intended. "Do you miss me when I'm gone?" I asked her. "Yeah," she said after a pause, then added something that stopped me cold. "The house is less frightening without you here. It's strange how you and Mommy don't fight when you're away. She doesn't get that angry look on her face as much." Even my 13-year-old had clocked the toxicity I'd been living with for years. That night, as I packed to leave for another week, Brooke cornered me in the hallway. "The kids are starting to take sides, Dalton," she said. "Are they?" I asked. "Or are they just watching what's been happening?" "You're turning them against me," she accused. I told her I wasn't turning anyone against anyone. I was simply no longer shielding her from the consequences of her choices. 2 months into my new rhythm, I made a move that altered everything. During one of my monthly visits, I found Brooke rifling through the papers on my desk in the home office. "What are you looking for?" I asked from the doorway and she jumped, claiming she was hunting for forms for Haley's dental work. The documents scattered on my desk were not insurance forms. They were contracts, bank statements, and other private financial records. "Find what you were looking for?" I asked, keeping my voice level. She muttered she needed to understand our finances because I'd been gone so much and she didn't know where we stood. I gathered up the papers, locked them in the file cabinet and told her the finances were fine. No need to worry. But for how long, I thought, if I kept paying for the cabin and our home? That was the moment I understood what she cared about. The next Monday, I met Shane Morrison for lunch. Shane had been my business partner for 8 years and had watched my marriage fall apart from the front row. "I need to ask you something," I said between bites. "If I wanted to buy you out, what would you want for your share?" Shane nearly choked on his drink. "You serious?" he asked. "Dead serious," I told him. I wanted full control. This wasn't just about business. It was about making sure no one could touch what I'd built if things went sideways with Brooke. Shane sat back and, after telling me he'd seen how she treated me, agreed to sell me his share. He said he'd do it because I needed protection. We shook hands and struck a deal that would make me the sole owner of Reeves Consulting. It cost me most of my liquid savings, but it meant Brooke could never claim Shane's half if our marriage dissolved. That Friday night I returned from my monthly trip to find the house redecorated for a performance. Fresh flowers everywhere, Brooke in a cocktail dress at 6 p.m., soft jazz coming from the speakers. "What's the occasion?" I asked. "No occasion," she said, bright and brittle. "I just wanted tonight to be special." Asher stood in the doorway rolling his eyes. She'd been cooking and cleaning all day, as if auditioning. He snatched an apple and told me, quietly, to come talk when I was ready about what was really happening. After he left, Brooke's forced cheer evaporated and she admitted she'd made a reservation at Romano's, our anniversary place. Our anniversary had been 3 months ago and I'd forgotten. she said. I told her I was busy, which was true but not the whole truth. She sat next to me at the table, her manicured hand finding my arm, saying she wanted to fix us. I asked what she wanted to fix and what she was willing to change. She blinked, surprised by the question. I asked for specifics. What personal changes would she make? How would she show up differently? How would she stop treating me like a provider rather than a person? The silence stretched. After 18 years, she couldn't answer basic questions about me. My fears, passions, 5-year goals, favorite book, the last time I cried, she didn't know. That told me everything. She wanted me to repair our marriage but wasn't willing to examine her part in breaking it. She finally suggested counseling, and I told her calmly that therapy couldn't cure indifference. You can't go to counseling to learn how to care about someone you've stopped seeing as human. Later that evening, I overheard her on the phone to her mother. He won't go to counseling, she whispered, and when I knocked on the doorframe, she cut the call short. You said I was punishing you over one comment about monthly intimacy, she argued. It wasn't one comment, I said, sitting on the bed and feeling suddenly exhausted. It was the last comment, the one that made me realize I'd been begging for scraps from someone who thought my needs were a nuisance. She cried then, not the manipulative kind I'd grown used to, but tears that came with fear, and said she didn't want to lose me. I told her she had lost me months ago and I was finally accepting reality. We'd been incompatible for a long time because she wanted a provider who didn't require emotional care and I wanted a partner who saw me as more than a walking ATM. 3 weeks after that, Asher knocked on my cabin door on a Saturday morning with a face like thunder. I poured him coffee and he pulled out his phone to show me screenshots. Brooks messages from Shane Morrison. Can't wait to see you tonight. Dalton's at the cabin again. Same hotel as last week. Room 237. My stomach went cold. Shane, the man I trusted enough to buy out. The friend who'd consoled me about my failing marriage while sleeping with my wife. Asher said he'd suspected for months. He'd noticed she was happier when I wasn't around, that she dressed up for grocery runs that took hours. Are you okay, Dad? He asked. Yeah, buddy, I lied at first and then told him the truth. I was better than okay because I finally saw clearly. I drove back to Westfield that afternoon and walked in on Brooke humming while she cooked. I showed her Asher's screenshots and the color drained from her face. She tried to explain. Shane, I said slowly. My business partner? The man I trusted. She stammered that it wasn't what it looked like, but I cut her off with a detail that emptied the room. I'd already bought Shane out, paid him $800,000 for his share, money that had come from our joint account, money he was likely spending on hotel rooms with my wife. Brooke sank to a kitchen chair and the questions tumbled out. How long had I known? Why didn't I notice? I told her I hadn't known until I saw the proof. I'd suspected the marriage was broken but never imagined she was so calculated. You've been cheating for months while making me feel like the problem, I said. That's not just betrayal, Brooke. That's cruelty. Her tears this time didn't move me. I wanted a divorce and I wanted her out of my house. She protested that the house was hers, but I told her I'd bought it before we married and had paid the mortgage for 18 years. Her name wasn't on the deed. For the first time, she looked truly frightened. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of the cabin that had become my permanent home, making breakfast for Asher and Haley. Both kids had chosen to live with me full-time and visit their mother every other weekend. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks earlier. Brooke had driven off with the furniture in her car while I kept the house, the business, and most importantly, my children's respect. Mrs. Peterson from down the road asked if I'd go to a barbecue and seemed determined to set me up with her sister Jennifer, who'd just moved back from California. When a text arrived that evening, "Hi, this is Jennifer Peterson. My sister Margaret gave me your number." I smiled and replied that coffee sounded nice. Asher laughed, the first genuine one I'd heard in months, and told me I deserved someone who appreciates me. Someone who wouldn't ration affection like it was scarce. Brooke had been dumped by Shane 2 weeks after the divorce. He decided a struggling single mother was a poor long-term prospect and left her to fend for herself in a small apartment while she worked part-time at a dental office, struggling with bills she'd never managed before. She's still your mother, I told the kids gently. She's learning hard lessons right now. Lessons about consequences, Asher said. About what happens when you take people for granted. Later, when Brooke came to pick up the kids and lingered on my porch asking for a talk, I told her we'd had 18 years but they weren't all good. I hadn't recognized how bad things had become until she revealed what I'd been worth to her. Once a month. She said she never meant to hurt me. I said she never meant to notice. When she left with the children, I sat on the porch and watched the sun go down, then responded to Jennifer's text. Coffee sounds nice. For the first time in years, I was open to someone who wanted to be with me every day. Not someone who rationed touch like a privilege. I'd learned a simple truth from my marriage. When someone shows you what you're worth to them, believe them. When they treat your love like an obligation, walk away. I deserved more than once a month. I deserved every day, and finally, I was free to find it.